You are listening to episode number 73 of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. Today we're talking with Mike Nickolaus, November Foxtrot 0 November. We're talking about operating a bicycle mobile, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. This is episode number 73, and today we're talking with Mike Nickolaus, November Foxtrot 0 November. We're talking about operating bicycle mobile. Pretty interesting concept if you ask me. Another example of marrying two hobbies together. Mike is one of the founding members of the Bicycle Mobile of America Club. They have a forum every year at the Dayton Hamvention, and they had one this past Hamvention as well. It's actually how I found out about the marrying of these two hobbies, basically. I saw them one day and I'm like, that sounds like a really interesting topic. You know, I like riding bicycles, even though I don't get to do it very much anymore, but operating bicycle mobile while you're at it, you know, not just on a handheld with the speaker mic, but also on HF and stuff like that. It's really seems to be pretty interesting. So I contacted him and he agreed to come on, and thankfully he did. And I want to thank him for coming on today. And if you have any questions, he will give you his email address a little later in the episode, as well as you can find on the show notes. And you can find those as well as any additional information. All the links and stuff we're going to be talking about, you can find them in the show notes. You can find that at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/73. That's the number 73. So, also you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio. I do still have the page as well at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I am on YouTube at youtube.com/everythinghamradio and on Twitter at K5CLM. Now, before we get to the episode, I want to give kind of a little bit of backstory here about the interview. Mike was such a trooper with this interview, and I greatly appreciate that. He actually did it on his tablet, so about 10 minutes or so into it, he had some storms going on and lost power, and I lost him for a second, and when I came back, he said that all his power was out, but he still continued to go on with the interview. So thank you very much for that, Mike. I greatly appreciate that. And so let's go ahead and get to that interview and hear what Mike has to say. Hey everybody, we are here with Mike Nickolaus, November Foxtrot 0 November, and today we're going to be talking with him about being a bicycle mobile, and a little bit later we're going to talk about a club that he basically helped start, from my understanding, of the Bicycle Mobile Hams of America, which met at Dayton a couple weeks ago. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about yourself and how you got started in this hobby?
Okay, well, I live in the state of Nebraska, the northeast corner of Nebraska, Dakota County. Been here about 35 years. Age is 74, almost 75 years old. And I'm retired from two different jobs. I'm retired from the International Business Machines Corporation and a company called Tyson Foods that's here in Dakota City. They're the largest meat producer in the world. And in both companies, I worked in the information technology, computers, a little bit of management. And I've been retired for 10 years, just a couple of days ago.
Wow.
I drive school bus part-time for the local company here to keep myself active. And it provides me some toy money to buy bicycles, computers, radios, motorcycles. Pays for my fun toys.
and all the ham radio stuff too, right?
and all the ham radio stuff. In fact, I'm in the process of putting up a new antenna, so it paid for that too.
And that's basically about what I've been doing all day today. I finally got my HF radio set up after living here about a year or so now. I finally got my HF radio set up in my shack. I have my VHF UHF dual band radio sitting here beside me, ready to be set up. I got my coax run last week, and I got my tower partially up today. Hopefully finish it tomorrow. So that's what I've been doing.
It sounds good. I could use help putting up a tower too.
Well, I have a 65-foot tower sitting on the ground that I had at my old house. And at my old house, I sat down in a valley. It was literally like 55 feet or so in any direction within about half a mile from where I live. So I live basically in a valley, and it really, really stunk. So I had to get a really big tower. But now the place that I live at, I'm like within 5 feet or so of the highest point in the county, and I can see 50 miles pretty much in any direction. So I just put up like just one section and put up the top piece of the tower. I got about 20 feet or so. So I'm good. I'm happy with that. That's about all I need.
Perfect. Now if we could just get band conditions to be better.
Yeah, no kidding. And
I might also mention my activities in ham radio.
Okay.
Obviously bicycling, of course, but I'm also a very active county hunter.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
So when we get into this a little bit in phase, well, at the end of the first segment, I have a little bit about one of my activities that I'll talk about with the county hunters.
Okay. So how did you, you told us how you got started. Well, actually, I guess you did. How did you get started in ham radio?
Well, I got started in ham radio. I was first licensed in 1964. And when I was a little boy, my parents always made a trip down to Springfield, Missouri. That's where my uncle lived. And it turns out he is W0 Charlie George Japan. In those days, he's long since passed away. First thing he would do when we went down there, he would say, "Mikey, come, I want you to listen to something on the radio." And he'd let me talk to somebody that he contacted. And that whetted my appetite. And later in my later life, when I was in my early 20s, I went to a technical school for electronics, and I had to go get my second-class radio telephone license, so I went and got my ham license at the same time, and I just kept upgrading and finally got to the extra class. So my uncle kind of got me started.
Keeping it in the family.
Yep.
So what made you decide that you wanted to merge the ham radio and the hobby and the bicycling hobby? Well,
it's kind of a story in itself. I've always been a bicycler. Somebody asked me once how long I've been bicycling, and I said since I was 5. That's when I got my first bicycle, and I really never quit. But there is a bicycle ride across Iowa. It's sponsored by the Des Moines Register. It's called RAGBRAI, Register's Annual Great Bike Ride Across Iowa. And the local club here, I was with them, and I got started riding with them back in the mid to late 1980s. And then a friend of mine called me up from Des Moines, and he worked for the Des Moines Register. And he and I and several other people, as the ride would go from overnight town to overnight town, we would take messages from the riders, make them into radiograms using packet radio, local 2-meter people. We would transmit those messages back to their families that said, "We got to this town okay." Now, you got to remember, this is before everybody had cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that for about 3 years. And then all of a sudden, this friend of mine that was doing this, he says he's got a ride. He says the women look good. It looks like a lot of fun. We got a ride. So he got free tickets for us to ride on RAGBRAI. And we put together a team of 5 people. And our team eventually turned out to be called Team Megacycles. And the first year we did it, not only did we get to ride free, the Des Moines Register knew that we were communicators, and they gave us their radios to carry with us so that we could use the radios to contact law enforcement personnel, their management team, ambulances that rode with the group, and we could actually be part of their communications. Well, in the meantime, we also carried handheld 2-meter radios. They were pretty big back in those days. So we did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then we started getting a little more sophisticated. We started mounting antennas on the back of our bikes because the range was a little bit too short with just the rubber duckies. Mm-hmm. And so we started putting antennas on our bikes. Our group grew a little bit. We had more communications. We did help. And that's kind of how I got started with Bicycle Mobile. Of course, we found ways to put radios and mount the antennas on the back of the bikes, on the racks and things like that. So that was my first foray into bicycle and hand radio at the same time.
So how long does it take you to ride across Iowa?
It takes a week.
Wow.
It's a 7-day ride. And Iowa is not flat. We found that out real quick. So, and it turns out now, since we started that, I have actually ridden that ride completely across Iowa 25 times.
Wow, that's awesome.
I've since retired. Last couple of years I rode a couple of days, but it's getting to be too much of a chore to ride. But some of the team members I rode with, still called Team Megacycles, still ride the ride. So that's how we got started with all of this bicycle stuff.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you do like 30, 40 miles a day, something like that?
Average day is about 75 miles.
Wow.
So it's a pretty long day. You have to be in reasonably good shape to do it.
Yeah.
If you're not in good shape before you start the ride, you're in pretty good shape after.
So you go 75 miles or so in a day, and you definitely would be a challenging ride. And then, like you said, you would definitely be in shape. You would either be, you'd be in some shape. Whether you would be still standing or not after the end of that would be a different story. I know I wouldn't be. It's hard. It's hard enough for me to ride my daughter's bike when we first got it, and I was kind of showing her how to switch the gears and stuff because it was our first multi-speed bike, and we got it for Christmas last year, and I was showing her how to do that, and it was like, back and forth across the yard, and it's like all I could do after about the third time to go. I was just so out of. Of course, I'm nowhere near in good shape, so you definitely probably have to do that well.
Well, I usually tried to ride 1,000 miles before this Ragbri ride, so
wow.
I was in good shape by the time the ride started around. Plus, I always ride. I learned too, the bicycle to ride is a recumbent bicycle, not the one with the upright saddle.
Okay.
That's too painful.
Oh, is that the one where you're like laying back?
Yeah, you're laying back and you're kind of like a lawn chair.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what I still ride. I have a long wheelbase one, and then also a trike, the 3-wheel trike, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, and I ride too. So I ride a little bit between the two of them.
I think I've seen a couple of those. We have here where I live at. We have the it's called the Goat Neck Bike Race in the latter part of July, and it's like the prep race, I guess you could say, for the Hotter Than Hell up in Wichita Falls. And,
oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, but it's the longest one's 100K. And my local club here, for the longest time, did communications for it, and then all of a sudden they decided they didn't want us to do it, and now we're doing it again this year. So I've seen quite a few of those, and quite a few guys riding that thing. And it's like, we have. I would always seem to be the farthest rest stop from the starting line, and we would do our briefing or whatever, and then I would go out there and I'd be waiting, and about 15 minutes later the people that were running the rest stop would get there, and we wouldn't even be set up yet, and the first group of riders would come through, and it's like, sorry guys, we don't have any water. They're like, we're cool, as they're driving by.
Yeah, those are your riding animals. There's always a few of those out front.
But yeah,
I recall they if you aren't to that last rest stop at a certain time, they pull you off the road.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of looking online, getting ready for this interview, and I've seen actually a lot of people have some kind of page or something like that actually do this bicycle mobile thing, and I've seen some really interesting setups, and I think we'll get a little bit more into that in this next segment. But I honestly, I don't see how. It seems to me like the weight of the radios and the batteries and all that would just throw my balance way off. But yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But so my really interesting question that I want to know is, what is your most memorable contact that you've made while operating Bicycle Mobile?
Well, one that stands out. There's actually two of them, I guess, here. But the first one that stands out is one that combines my county hunting with my Bicycle Mobile. And I used to take have a small motorhome, 24-foot. This was about 20 years ago. And I'd put my bicycle in there, and I'd carry the bicycle, and I'd go on trips and have my regular HF radio in my motorhome. And one time I was kind of out in the north central part of Nebraska. And in the early evening, I stopped at a campsite out in the sandhills of Nebraska, took my bicycle out, and conditions on 20 meters seemed to be pretty good. So I had another radio. Can't even remember which radio it was now. I think it ran 10 watts. I borrowed somebody's radio. I had a HF 20 meter mobile antenna mount on the back of the bike, and I rode down to the entrance of the place where I was staying, and I called CQ on the county hunter's net on 20 meters, and the net control heard me, and I said, I'm in this county in Nebraska, and I'm Bicycle Mobile. And he says, oh, you're mobile. He doesn't care if I'm car mobile or bicycle mobile. I said, I'm Bicycle Mobile. So he gave me the frequency and let me put it out, and this was on voice too, sideband. I think the frequency was 14.336. And I think about 20 people came back to me, and it took me, 5 or 10 minutes to work them. One of which was, at that time, Czechoslovakia was still a country, and he was a county hunter, and he worked me, gave me a 5 and 9. I gave him a 5 and 9, and I made those 20 contacts, and then I kind of sat and listened on the frequency after I was done. And I heard this guy from Czechoslovakia call somebody and said, that guy was Bicycle Mobile, wasn't he? And somebody said, yes, he was. And the guy in Czechoslovakia said, well, he was coming in pretty darn good. So that was one of my most memorable contacts, Bicycle Mobile.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've done that a few times, put out a few counties Bicycle Mobile, not many, but just to do it from time to time is kind of a fun thing. But that was probably my most memorable contact. Another one that stands out a little bit, and it's only because of the person I worked. We had our bicycles on display at a local hamvention, and mine was one of them. And I had my HF set up with me that I could actually pick up the microphone and talk as I rode. And two of us had them there, and as a demonstration, we rode 3 or 4 blocks out into the park and then rode back. And so I put out a CQ I think it was on 17 meters at that time, put it out on the 17 meter QRP frequency. And the guy came back to me. His call sign was W3 Foxtrot Foxtrot. Well, that guy's name is Bud. And he is the guy that started a company called Buddy Pole, which is a manufacturer. They put together buddy poles, the buddy stick. They've become very successful over the years. They show at Dayton and sell over the internet and have a real nice QRP display and setup that they can use for portable antennas. And I thought that was amazing that he actually heard me and came back to me on that frequency. So he's kind of a famous guy in the ham radio world.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty
those are
neat.
my two most mobile ones, I guess. So other than that, I just made thousands of contacts doing different things.
So how many counties do you have?
I've worked all of them. I'm just about done my fifth time.
In like the entire U.S. or just in Nebraska or what?
No, the entire U.S.
Wow.
And then I'm almost done working on the second time, all Morse code.
Wow, that's awesome. It amazes me doing stuff like that, and I'm actually thinking about have to do an episode on county hunters, because it's like, the place that I work, in the county I work for, the sheriff's office in Somerville County, Texas, and it's a little bitty county. I mean, it's the second smallest county in Texas, and it has like 8,000 population in it, and it's probably maybe a quarter of the size of the county that I live in. It's literally like, I think like 15 miles from end to end both ways. So it's this little bitty county, and to say that you've worked every county in the U.S. it blows my mind.
Well, I could do that for you too if you ever want to do that. There's a group that we call MARAC, Mobile Amateur Radio Awards Club, and they sponsor multiple awards for working counties various ways. They have conventions and that type of thing. But the original certificate is sponsored by CQ Magazine.
Uh-oh, sounds like you got a storm coming in. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break with that. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Mike about how to operate Bicycle Mobile and how to set a bike up to operate. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after we hear from West Mountain Radio. Are you tired of lousy propagation conditions and wondering how to work some real DX for a change? Maybe you spin the dial and wonder what's going on below the voice segment of the HF bands. The answer is, you're missing out. You're missing out on digital modes, a rapidly growing and exciting part of amateur radio. Work real DX with the incredible JT65 and JT9 modes. It's no exaggeration when I tell you, you will work stations you never thought possible, even using low power and compromised antennas. Have fun making new contacts in modes such as PSK31, Olivia, Radio Teletype, Slow Scan TV, and many more. The Rig Blaster Advantage is everything you need to operate these exciting digital modes. Made right here in the US, the Rig Blaster interface has set the standards for nearly 20 years. Thousands of satisfied operators have learned their Rig Blaster Advantage will provide solid digital communications, easy operating, and reliability. Don't miss out on the fun and excitement any longer. Head on over to everythinghamradio.com/WMR for more information and learn how to get your free USB port monitor with your purchase. All right, y'all, we are back with Mike Nickolaus, November Foxtrot 0 November. In this segment, we're going to talk about how to operate and how to set up operating Bicycle Mobile. So, first off, I guess really the question that I have is, what kind of equipment do you typically use or would use to be Bicycle Mobile?
Well, today it's a little bit different. A lot of people now are using the Elecraft KX2, KX2 and KX3, which are pretty easy to mount. They take very, very low power. They both run about 10 to 12 watts if you want to. Batteries, a few years ago, people used to use the 7 amp hour NiCad batteries, which weighed about 7 or 8 pounds. Now you can get that same size battery, but it's about a third of the weight. In fact, I bought one at Dayton 2 years ago, less than $100, 12 volts, and it's about an 8 amp hour battery, but it lasts forever, and it's easy to charge. It charges up pretty quick, so you can carry those real easily. There's also some other lightweight batteries that I think they're called, can't remember what the names of them are right now, but they're very, very long life, fairly lightweight. They run 12 volts. They're in a 3-cell pack or a 4-cell pack, whichever you need. So right now, the people in our group are mainly using the KX2, KX3, various antennas on the back. Some people like what's called the Outbacker antenna. It's fairly lightweight, not awfully expensive. It's in the $200 range. And you can have various taps on it so that you can operate different bands. And that's what some of our people are starting to have on their bicycle setups now. When I was doing it, I used the Yaesu 5-watt QRP radio, and I did that for 4 or 5 years until I sold it and bought a KX3 from Elecraft. I haven't had a chance to mount that on the bicycle yet, but I do have a handheld or two that I can use on the recumbent. I just put it in the backpack that either I'm carrying or on the front of me on the steering mechanism on the trike or on the recumbent. And then I have an antenna that's mounted right behind my head, and just use it with 2 meters and 440. So,
having it right behind your head, I would think you would definitely want to stick to like QRP power levels, though, right?
You're just ringing HT, and 99.9% of the time you're listening anyhow. So you don't transmit too much. Your transmission time is very short. So, well, I shouldn't say it's right behind my head. It's behind my body, behind the seat. So it's a few feet away, but it's still pretty close if you think about RF. So, but that works pretty good.
So speaking of batteries, do you just operate entirely off of batteries, or do y'all have like some kind of like generator that you hook to the mount to the side of the tire to charge your batteries, or do you have anything really, DIY ish type thing?
I kind of do a dual thing. First I use the battery in the radio itself. If it's a handheld, for just 2 meters and 440, you've got quite a bit of battery. You can get pretty good sized batteries just for your regular Yaesu or ICOM handheld. But if I'm going for a long distance, then I'll carry one of these big batteries in my panniers or in my case in the back, just in case I run out of the battery that's on the HT. And then I can just plug that in, and that'll run me for another 2 days probably. So. You don't really, 90% of the time you're monitoring or just listening anyhow. So
right.
Most of the radios you can do things like turn off the display, so you don't have the light on in the display all the time. If you're scanning, turn the amount of time that the radio goes to sleep. There's settings for that, so you can extend your battery life really pretty good if you do those things.
So do you operate primarily just HF, or do you operate like 2 meter simplex while you're doing this, or?
Oh, you can do 2 meter. I do 2 meter simplex, 440 simplex. There's local repeaters around that you can hit. We've got some around here. You can hit them 20, 30 miles away, even with 5 watts HT. So
that's good.
They have pretty good range on them. I haven't operated HF for quite some time, actually. Others in our other group that we'll talk about later do, and some of them have some pretty sophisticated setups.
So how do you mount your radios? I mean, I would think that, even with the KX2, it's pretty small, but would you mount it on your handlebars? Do you put it back behind you, or, how does a typical setup look like?
Well, for people that have upright bikes, there are several mounts available now for the KX2 and the KX3, and using their mounts to hold the radio itself, mounting them to your handlebars, and having enough shockproof foam around them and stuff like that, you can ride down the road with those mounted on the handlebars very successfully. Then they use a microphone. A couple of our guys use headsets that they talk into, and those have been very successful. And then they have a little push button mount that's screwed onto the handlebar, and then they just push it with their thumb when they want to talk.
That sounds pretty neat. I saw a I mentioned this earlier when I was looking at different people's websites that actually do this. I saw one guy that actually has his HF. He has a removable faceplate for his HF radio that he has mounted on the front, and then the radio itself in like a bag or something like that on a, I guess some kind of platform or something that sits above the back tire, and then he has a Pelican case with an APRS setup in it that's mounted on the side of the tire that goes down, and it basically sits between the rack and the gear shift mechanism down the tire. And to me, that would just like really blow my balance. It would really seem to be really hard. Have you seen setups like that?
Yeah, I've seen setups like that. We have a couple of people in our Bicycle Mobile Hands of America group that their battery supply is almost like a 12-volt lead acid battery for a car.
Wow. That you would definitely have to be in shape.
Yeah. Was this one that you saw, was he an English guy? Was he from England?
No, he had an American call sign. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but okay. I want to say that he was in like Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that, I think. But it just seemed really, really odd to have this Pelican case mounted on the side of the bike and nothing to counterbalance on the other. It just seemed like it would take that much more effort to remain upright, and adding that much more weight and stuff. You definitely have to be in shape, all that much more with all the extra weight. But it was pretty neat, and I'll get some pictures and stick in the show notes of today's episode for y'all to see. But yeah, it was very interesting. So what kind of difficulties do you run into when you operate Bicycle Mobile?
Well, probably traffic if you're going to operate while you're riding. I really don't recommend actually operating HF radios while you're actually riding the bicycle. You're probably better off stopping by the side of the road and then operating for a period of time, doing it that way, and then moving on to another location if you want to transmit from there. You can run into some dangerous situations on a busy road if you're riding bicycle and trying to run your radio, especially HF at the same time, because if you got HF radio, you've probably got a lot of equipment on the bike, and you just need to make sure that you're riding safe in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do have another story to relate there.
Okay.
I rode my tricycle, which is very stable. You don't have to worry about balance. And I made a little communications trailer. I don't know if have you ever seen the little burly trailers that people ride behind their bicycles?
Mm-hmm.
You can pull kids in it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Burly makes one that's called a Nomad, and it's basically to carry cargo. Well, I mounted made it into a communications trailer that I use occasionally, and I have a aluminum plate mounted on the top, on the rack of the trailer, and I put mounts in there, and I could mount 2-meter 440 antenna and an HF antenna all at the same time right on that trailer. It was solid enough that it would stay upright. And I would put my battery and my equipment in the back. A friend of mine loaned me his ICOM 703, which is a 10-watt radio. And I took that with me, and I rode it across Nebraska, from western Nebraska to eastern Nebraska on Highway 20, which is a shouldered road. So I felt pretty safe riding the trike that far. It was a distance of about 420 miles, and it took me about a week. And I did operate HF Mobile using that. What I did is I would stop on a county line and go on to the county hunter net. Actually, I ran CW most of the time, and ran CW from the county line and put out a pretty good signal because I had almost the equivalent of a 16-foot antenna, and tuned it with the tuner in the ICOM 703. And that worked pretty good. That was a little communications trailer. I don't use it too much. I still have it. I usually go out on field day, take the trike, put the trailer on, put my radios in there, and set up on a park bench for field day. And I operate field day, make 100 or so contacts, and come back home. So I still use that communications trailer. And there are people in our BMHA group that do use a trailer to put their equipment in, and that's been very, very successful because you can carry a lot more weight. If you're looking at batteries and if you're going for a long distance, you can carry your gear in there too.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it adds that much more weight either. It's like 15 pounds. I think what I'm looking at the website now. And it's actually pretty neat little trailer.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that a few years ago. A friend of mine and I, he was going to ride across Nebraska with me. He bailed out because he hadn't ridden enough before the ride, and he knew he was not going to make it. So I ended up doing it solo. But our plans were to do PSK 31. There's a radio called NUE-PSK that does PSK in it. And then you just hook it up to your radio and use that as a transmitter. And we were going to do that and transmit PSK as we were riding our way back here from the west to the east part of Nebraska. So that's why we built the trailer.
Interesting. So how do you log your contacts in? I guess if you stop, you could take out a little pad of paper or something like that, or your phone or something like that. But how do you log your contacts that you make?
Well, same device I use for county hunting. It's a digital voice recorder that works very, very well. You can record 20 hours of voice.
That's a good idea. I never thought about that.
Then I transcribe it to paper at some point in time.
Cool.
But that works. You don't have to worry about trying to log something that way.
Right. Yeah, that would be really, really neat. Very interesting. Well, I guess let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Bicycle Mobile of America Club. I believe, I think that's what it's called. Anyways, we'll be right back, and we'll talk about that. So stay tuned and stick around. Hey, y'all, real quickly, just want to let y'all know about a blog post that came out on my website here a couple days ago. It's a pretty interesting little story that I found, and I don't know how many of y'all know about it, but this is another prime example of marrying two hobbies. And this one is basically marrying amateur radio with flying, with being a pilot. I came across a story while I was looking for another podcast topic, and the blog or the event, basically, it's called the Amelia Earhart Project, and it's basically a gentleman by the name of Brian Lloyd. He is following in the flight plan of Amelia Earhart when she took her trip around the world, and he's about halfway through it, I believe. Now he left about 3 weeks ago, I think 2-3 weeks ago, something like that, and he is basically journaling as he goes, taking pictures and writing little blurbs and stuff about his trip. And I believe he's in Africa right now, as of this recording on the 13th of June. So make sure you head over to my website at everythinghamradio.com. Scroll about halfway down the page, and you'll see a subject or a segment area that says blog post, and check out the Amelia Earhart Project. Check that out. Go over to his website and check it out. So it's really neat for me. I love to fly. Like I said a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the drones and remote control airplanes and stuff like that. But this thing really kind of touched me. Going back over history, he's basically commemorating the 80th anniversary of this single engine flight around the world. So check it out. He has a live tracker where you can check exactly where he is. He has an HF radio where he's using, where he will talk on single sideband and on ALE, which is automatic link establish, I believe. Which I'm also looking for a person to come on the show and talk to about that. So if any of y'all know about the ALE protocol or subject, let me know. And if you would like to be on the podcast, we can set up an interview and talk about it, because I would really love to learn about it. But anyways, he has, like I said, the HF radio, single sideband, and ALE. He's talking on his longer legs when he gets a chance, and follow him on a tracker. So head on over to everythinghamradio.com and check out that blog post. Okay, let's get back to our interview with Mike. We are back with Mike Nickolaus, November Foxtrot 0 November, and we're going to talk about a club that he basically helped started. From my understanding, he's been with it since the get-go, pretty much. Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us about this club?
Okay, well, Bicycle Mobile Hams of America really was started by November Alpha Zero Alpha. His name is Hartley Alley, and the last place he lived was in Boulder, Colorado. He was kind of an entrepreneur. He was a photographer, a writer, started a business making bags for bicycles, had a bicycle shop that sold accessories in Boulder, Colorado. And he had an idea for his 50th high school class reunion. He thought it would be nice to ride his bicycle from his home to his high school that he went to high school. Well, that sounds like a good idea. Of course, 50th high school class reunion, that means Hartley was probably in his mid-60s to late 60s. He lived in Boulder, Colorado. His high school that he graduated from was in Boston, near Boston, Massachusetts.
So that's a long ride.
Yes, it is. It's I think it's 1,400 and some miles. I have to look at his journals to really tell.
Wow.
But he wanted to talk to people along the way. And so he rigged up an antenna on his bicycle. Now this was in 1987 when he did this. He just had a regular 10-speed bicycle. He planned his route, and he rode his bicycle, and he made it. And at the end of the ride, there was a hill that as a kid he could never climb. He climbed it for his 50th. Well, along the way, he kept a journal. He communicated. He took photographs. He took his 2-meter radio with 2 spare batteries and a battery charger. So if you remember the battery chargers and the size of the batteries in the mid to late 80s, they were huge.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how much weight it was. He weighed everything before he left. And he kept stories and talked on his radio, hit all the repeaters on his way. One of the places he went through was Nebraska. There's people that still remember him doing that, and they talk about him. And he had newspaper articles along the way. He was an entrepreneur. He knew how to get publicity. But he did it. This was in 1987. Well, to make a long story short, I attend Dayton every year, have been since about 1982. And in 1990, I looked at the forums for that year, and I saw Bicycle Mobile by Hartley Alley. And I thought, man, that ought to be interesting. And so I attended it. It was in room 7, which is a smaller room. It was full and overflowing. He had an audience so big they couldn't all get in. And he had a script that he read from and talked about. He had 140 slides that he took with his camera. He showed those slides to people, and people were just raptured by what he talked about. Well, then after the forum, you could go talk to him, and there was a little time to the next forum. And he asked if anybody was interested in helping him start a club, an online type club. He wanted to have a way that people could share their information about bicycling and mobiling on bicycles. So his intent was to share information and be a source of information to other people that had a like interest. Well, I did, because I had been doing some of that on Ragbri, the bicycle right across Iowa. And so after that, we communicated, not on email, by telephone and letter. We didn't have email back then, or at least he didn't at first. And I helped him form the club. I think there was almost 100 people that signed up that first time.
Wow.
They had dues they decided $10 a year was enough. And so he started with $10, had a monthly newsletter. The newsletter was published for about almost 15 years. I still have all of the original copies of of all of the newsletters that were ever published. There's a CD that has all of them, all of the newsletters that's on it. And in those newsletters, there is a wealth of information about bicycle mobile, how to mount your antenna, how to mount a key, electronic or a Morse code key, microphones, batteries, supplies, racks, all that type of thing. There's a wealth of information that people still use, and it's available to everybody. I think you've looked at the website,
Mm-hmm.
the BMHA-hams.org, and all of the newsletters are on there. You can look at all of the information there. It's at no charge. Hartley ran the club, did an excellent job of it with my help and other people's help. In about the year 2000, his health was failing quite badly, and he knew that he was not going to be around too many more years, and so he worked with several of us to turn over the club. It actually he turned it over to two of us. The person you met, Skip, AA6WK, out in California, is the webmaster, and he is the keeper of the records and the newsletters that were copied. He put them all on CD, made the CDs so that we could give them out to people. And Hartley passed away in 2002. So it's basically Skip, AA6WK, and myself. I'm the secretary treasurer. I have the funds that Hartley turned over to me. And Skip and I ran the club since that time. We've had some help, but not a tremendous amount. But there are people that do give us some help. Our main activity now is we have the forum at Dayton every year. I helped Hartley, even when he was still living, do the forums at Dayton every year. Another fellow from Des Moines, Iowa, WB0RSW, Roger Sugar Whiskey, did it for about 5 years. His call sign then became K0 Papa Echo. And unfortunately, he passed away at age 55 2 years ago, and I lost my good friend. He was also my organizing friend that we did Ragbri on for a number of years. So I've lost two friends in that respect. We didn't know for sure what to do with the newsletter. That was kind of the one item that kind of held the club together, but it took a massive amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find a newsletter, we did 3 or 4 issues, and we got some out, but then you have the problem of finding articles. A printed newsletter in today's age doesn't work too well. We put out a few PDF newsletters, and we still have the capability. We would do it. Skip and I made the strategic decision that we had about $3,000 in the treasury. We didn't have any expenses. So what we decided between the two of us is we would retain the treasury. We would make the club a dues-free club. People can use all of the facilities, everything we have. They can share information. The only expenses we really had were the website, which is, I don't remember how much it is a year, but to maintain that and the licenses and so forth. So we still use the treasury for that. We're affiliated with Adventure Cycling out of Missoula, Montana, which is a great advocacy agency for bicycling. They're not ham radio related, but we're affiliated with them, and we support them. They support us. So that's a small expense every year. We still have about half of that money left. We carefully guard it so that we don't run out. and we just don't have that many expenses. We took all of the newsletters that were ever published, Skip copied them and put them on, and we made a CD with all of the newsletters on them, and we give those to people that join our group or give a donation of at least $10. We don't have dues, but if somebody wants to give us $10 or $15 for support, which some people do, we then share that CD with them. And it's something we'd share with you. If you would like to have one, I'd be glad to send you a copy. There's a wealth of information on them. They're on various websites, but this puts them all in one concise CD.
That'd be cool.
We carry the organization on. The main activity now is we have a forum at Dayton every year. Every year at Dayton on Sunday morning at 9:15, we have a forum. And I never have a lack of speakers. This year I had 2 speakers. They both had, one of them mounted a K3 on his bike. The other one had a KX3, I mean. The other person had a KX2 that he mounted, and he rode a trail, one of the canal trails in New York. That's what it was. He rode on that canal trail. Can't remember the name of it right now. So he had a display and a demonstration. He had a trailer with it, and so he showed how he mounted everything, had the trailer there on display along with the bike. The other person didn't have the trailer, but he had his bike with it all mounted on. He had solar power on the bike, too, that he could reach batteries when he stopped. So,
that's cool.
This was our 29th Bicycle Mobile Hams of America Forum at Dayton. So we've had 29 years since we started. So
wow.
We'll probably continue as long as I can continue.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So how many members do y'all have now?
Well, if we count them all up, we don't keep as good a track as we used to. It's somewhere around 300, I think we still have. That still we count on we have a database that has the members on it. At one time, we had 14 different countries. I don't know if we have quite that many now, but we do have some foreign people.
Wow.
A couple from England. I know we have a couple from England, so.
That's neat. Yeah, I totally understand about the newsletter thing. I was a newsletter editor for my club for the longest time, and the hardest thing for me to do is to get stuff together. Of course, now I'm doing podcasts and have a blog, and I'm still basically looking for information, but there's so much information out there, but the niche that y'all have with the bicycle mobile, it really probably kind of limits the information you can put on there, I'm sure. But
it does. We thought the PDF newsletter would take hold, but the problem is getting articles from people.
Mm-hmm.
Enough of them that you can do that. Now, I have had somebody offer to do a blog, and I may take them up on that. Just out of the blue, somebody offered. When he joined up, he put in a note on the bottom of it that said, would you be interested in a bicycle mobile blog?
Mm-hmm.
So I picked him up. That might supplant what would be the newsletter and might be something that is probably a good idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I read a book here not too long ago. I just finished it last week, I think it was, and I actually have a blog post that goes out next Tuesday. And it's called Ham Radio Boost, Lessons Learned from Amateur Radio. And it was written by a gentleman. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but like I said, there will be a blog post coming out next Tuesday. So, but anyways, in one of his subjects that it's like a 73-page book, relatively cheap, and it has a lot of really good information in it. But the very first chapter of the book, he lists like 10 major things that he kind of offshoots from for the rest of the book. But the last thing is going social. You know, nowadays, especially with the way the world is and the internet and, you know, transmissions needed, or, you know, information being needed to spread as fast as possible because it becomes old news kind of sort of, you know, blogging or, you know, podcasts like this or other things, you know, getting that information out for the rest of the world to see and read and hear about is something that, you know, it really needs to be done, and especially with I would really highly recommend that you take this gentleman up on his offer, and even go so far as to have several people submit articles. Something like amateurradio.com. They have, I think, like 20 or so frequent contributors that work that sends that page. So he can set up a blog, and you can have people tell about their trip, tell about their bicycle ride that they just ran, or a problem that they had, installing a radio or something like that. I definitely recommend that you take this gentleman up on his offer and get that going, because the newsletters that you have, it sounds like there was a lot of information on there, and they're still up there. I'm looking at some of them now, but information tends to get outdated, and things change, and even though you can take the general concept of what an article was done or a newsletter was about and change it to what it is now, but then if you have 3 people that are wanting to do this, and one person says, hey, I'm going to write a how-to on how to do it and put it on a blog post, then these other 2 people don't have to necessarily figure out all the ins and outs. They can just kind of customize it or tweak a little bit of what they're doing. So, like I said, I highly recommend that you do that, because the information that's there, especially for this small of a niche, it would really, I think, do a well bit of good for all your members, and potentially even grow it more. So,
well, that's good. And that would get another person helping Skip and myself keep the club going too.
Exactly,
so,
and potentially
the original purpose for Hartley Alley was to disseminate information that other people would like to share, and this would be in that same spirit. So,
right, exactly. It's all about being an Elmer. And that's basically what you do, as a blogger. You are an Elmer for more people than you could potentially do, by yourself. Writing these things and the how-tos and stories and stuff like that, your experiences and stuff, it's basically being an Elmer for somebody, showing them how to do stuff. So,
well, that's what we do as hams all the time. So,
that's what we should do. Unfortunately, I've seen at least here locally, I've heard a lot in other areas too. But the Elmer, unfortunately, has severely decreased. And you get all these new hymns coming in, and they're like, okay, now what do I do? And there's nobody there to show them. So
Yep.
So
okay, I'll take him up on that then.
So, what do y'all just have the Dayton forum? Do y'all have any other kind of meetups? Maybe regional meetups or anything like that?
No, we have had some members give presentations at their local hamventions and things like that. Flea markets and places that they can present some stuff. But other than the Dayton, we don't have anything formal right now.
Do y'all do like a net, maybe? An HF net?
We did the first year. We tried it. In fact, I was in net control. It worked for a while, but then I found I was the only one that was checking in after a while. So.
I hear you there. Trust me.
It just didn't work out. So I still get a question from some couple people that say, are we ever going to have a net again? So there must be some interest in it yet.
Yeah.
So, but probably won't now. So.
With technology the way it is, you have your HF, you have, Echolink and IRLP and stuff like that. There's so many ways that you can have a net and have, the way that y'all are spread out so much, not just a county-based club. You're basically around the world. So, it's kind of hard sometimes for people to check in on HF or something. If you had like an Echolink room or a D-Star room or, something along those lines, where everybody could check in no matter where they are or no matter what the band conditions are, that might be something to look into as well.
Yep.
So
yeah, I may make a presentation at we got a new club here in town that I might do that for.
There you go.
That would work out. We've got Fusion up here. One other thing I should mention too, when Hartley and it was strictly by accident. Hartley Alley, when he used to go out and give presentations along, to various clubs along the route that he did, he took the slides. He had a series of newspaper articles that he put together, probably about 100 pages worth of stuff. And when he passed away, nobody knew what happened. He kept all of that in a suitcase. And I got an email one day from a non-ham, and evidently he bought that. Evidently Hartley's family got rid of that suitcase after everybody passed away, and it ended up in a thrift shop. This guy bought the suitcase and emailed me, and because he found my email address inside there, and said he had placed it on eBay for selling, and if I was interested, that I could go there and bid on it. And so I did. I think I bid $20. And of course I won the bid. So I now have the suitcase that Mr. Hartley Alley, NA0A, had all of his pictures, all of his newspaper clippings, all of his notes that he did when he took that trip. And I have them here, and I've had them on display at Dayton at our forum at least 2 times now to show everybody. So
wow. That's awesome.
A bit of history and nostalgia that I have. So
yeah, that's awesome that you have it. But that kind of stinks the way that he did you.
Well, I think it was his family.
Wow.
Didn't know what to do with it, and probably somebody said, pitch it, give it to the thrift shop, they'll do something with it. So yeah. I don't know why they did it. So.
Wow. Well, Mike, I thank you for coming on. Why don't you give y'all's website address again for everybody that's listening? And if you don't mind, if anybody has any questions, do you mind giving out your email address where they can contact you if they have any questions?
Sure. The website address for Bicycle Mobile Hams of America is www.bmha, that's Bicycle Mobile Hams of America, -hams, Hotel Alpha Mike Sierra, .org, Oscar Radio Golf. That's bmha-hams.org. And anything is there that you can look at. You can join. You can look up newsletters. You can see lots of articles that are there, just good general information. And there is a sign-up application if you'd like to join. It's free, no charge. Glad to have you do that. The other location that you can look at is Yahoogroups, and the group name is BMHA, Bicycle Mobile Hams of America. There's a forum there. There's lots of pictures of bicycles, rides, trailers, setups, and just general information for everybody that's on that particular group. And that does get some activity. So we've had that group for quite some time. So those are the 2 major organizations to look at. And my email address is NF0N, November Fox 0 November, at ARRL.net, Alpha Radio Lima.net. And feel free to email me with questions. I'll be glad to answer, glad to help out, share any information I might have.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this. Hopefully, you will have some new members out of this, or at least some questions and some interest out of this podcast. So I will, I'll let you know when this thing goes live and send you the link so you can share it as well. And once again, thank you very much for all that you've done and continuing this hobby and marrying the 2 hobbies that you have, and telling all my listeners about operating Bicycle Mobile.
Okay, glad to do it, and I hope we have some new members. Be glad to answer questions.
All right,
Thank
Mike,
you.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, y'all, so that pretty cool wraps up this episode. I once again want to thank Mike and Nickolaus for coming on today and talking to us about operating Bicycle Mobile. If you enjoyed what you heard here, please listen to other episodes of mine and share it with your friends. You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/ groups/everythingham radio, on YouTube at youtube.com/everythinghamradio, and on Twitter at K5CLM. If you have not signed up for my email list, please do so. You can go to the show notes, and all the way down the bottom there's a form you can fill out, or you can go to everythinghamradio.com/subscribe. Once you fill out the form, click the sign me up button, and you will receive an email from me with a link that you'll need to click on in order to receive emails from me. I will not sell your email list or your email address to anybody, and I will only use it for this blog. Also want to mention I have some stuff in my swag store. I have some coasters, some coffee mugs, some mouse pads, stuff like that. You can find that at everythinghamradio.com/store. I guess that pretty well wraps up this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Please like my my Facebook post, share it with your friends, and I guess until next time, this is K5CLM signing out. 73, y'all.